Yeah, so in honor of NFL free agency this week, thought we would make a podcast discussing the worst signings in Jacksonville Jaguars history when it came to free agency. I know a lot of Jaguars fans right now are a little disappointed in free agency this year. We've only made one signing so far, Chris Rodriguez, $6 million a year. Not a big flashy signing like we've seen in the past. And so a lot of Jaguars fans are disappointed because in recent years we have been very flashy in free agency. Meanwhile, division rival like the Tennessee Titans have went out and spent, you know, I think almost $100 million in free agency this year alone. And the Indianapolis Colts have spent a lot of money re-signing some of their players. And so I thought we would discuss kind of why paying high price free agents tends to turn out pretty poorly by looking back at Jaguars history and ranking the five worst signings in Jaguars history when it came to free agency, just to kind of make Jaguars fans feel a little happier that, like we didn't go out and spend reckless money this year. James Gladstone, Tony Baselli, Liam Cohen, they have a plan. The plan is not to win one division title and go back to mediocrity. The plan is to build something sustainable long term. And the way you do that is not overpaying free agents. It's developing your team through the draft, acquiring draft picks, which James Gladstone had mentioned in his press conference yesterday. That was something they were trying to do with the compensatory picks, and the Jags should get three of them, two fifth rounders. Hoping Chris Rodriguez signing didn't change that, and so the Jaguars continue to pile up draft picks. You develop those draft picks, turn them into players, and that's how you build sustainable success. You don't go out and sign a ton of free agents. I know the Titans had the salary cap space to do so, but I think we're going to see that it's not going to change the product on the field for them too much. And you don't overpay players. I feel the Colts certainly did that with Alex Pierce. He's definitely not the 10th best receiver in the league, but he's going to be paid like that now. I mean, he might not even be the best receiver on his team. Honestly, Josh Downs might. I wouldn't shock me if Josh Downs is better than him next season. But let's talk a little bit about some of the times the Jaguars have made a big, flashy, splashy move in free agency and has not turned out so well. So the fifth worst signing in Jaguars history, I'm going to say, is Chris Ivory, running back. He signed a 5-year, $32 million contract with the Jags back in 2016. This was coming after kind of his breakout year with Sean Payton in New Orleans, where he actually was like one of the league leaders in rushing. He got to Jacksonville, and now I will say he lasted longer in Jacksonville than anyone else on my list here. He lasted 2 seasons, and he wasn't completely awful in those 2 seasons. Right, like he did play a part in that 2017 team. He was, like the change of pace back to Leonard Fournette, and so he wasn't completely worthless, and he did provide some value for the Jags. But he was making over $6 million a year, and this was back in 2016. So just to put that in perspective, 10 years later, the Jags just signed a guy who's probably going to play a similar role to what Chris Ivory did for the team in 2016, 2017, and for less money. And Chris Rodriguez, right, from an annual year perspective, right? So that kind of just sums up what Chris Ivory, if Chris Ivory lived up to that contract or not. I think clearly he did not. And that's why he comes in at number 5. Number 4 here, and this one was specifically bitter to me as a high school student at the time in Philadelphia Eagles country. Hugh Douglas, a 5-year, $27 million contract with the Jags back in 2003. Hugh Douglas was kind of one of the heart and soul players for the Eagles back in that time period. Was a big sack producer. He also, really in Philadelphia, he was kind of like the voice of that locker room from a defensive side. Very popular in Philadelphia. the signing when he came down to Jacksonville, it was part of the new regime with Jack Del Rio. The thought was right, like, let's build the defense up. And Hugh Douglas was supposed to bring some of that swagger to Jacksonville. That swagger only resulted in 3.5 sacks over the course of the 2003 season, and a really bad attitude, right? Like something which, like I said, in Philadelphia, and at the time, most of my friends were Eagles fans, and they all loved Hugh Douglas, and like the city of Philly loved him, but for whatever reason, that attitude did not work well in Jacksonville. He only lasted the one season before the Jaguars released him. He ended up back in Philadelphia, but like he was clearly washed at the time he signed that contract. He came to Jacksonville for the bag and got it, and it just didn't work out. Number 3 on the list here, and this guy is actually still on the Jacksonville Jaguars cap for one more season, and that's big game Gabe Davis. 3 years, $39 million contract back in 2024. Again, just a guy who only lasted one season with the Jags, not a particularly good season. He was injured. He played 9 games, had 239 yards. Yeah, not exactly what you pay $39 million for. Again, another guy who I think the attitude also played into a factor here. Just a guy who didn't work out here, and now this season he's costing the Jags $16 million. And just to kind of reiterate, like the reason why I made this video, wanted to talk about this is, right, like when you make these types of decisions, right, like you sign free agents, it feels good at the time because you win free agency. People talk about how, the Jaguars added this player, this is how he's going to fit on the team, right? This is why the Jags are going to be better next year. And it doesn't work out. And now you're paying guys to not be on the team, right? And when you think about $16 million, that's $4 million more than what Travis Etienne is going to count against the cap in New Orleans this year. So, right, like when you go out and you sign these guys, it ends up costing you the ability to sign the players that you have on your team that fit your scheme, that are potentially culture fits. And so, right, like you pay for these decisions, right? So the Jaguars are still paying for the decision of Trent Baalke to sign Gabe Davis. That's why he comes in here at number 3. Number 2 here, and this is the second former Eagles on the list, and that's Nick Foles. 4 years, $88 million, signing back in 2019. And this really compounded right from that 2017 season. And so, right, the Jags, the Jacksonville team, we had that magical run in 2017 to the AFC Championship game. And, right, we know Miles Jack wasn't down, but if we had even a capable quarterback, the Jags would have been in the Super Bowl, and I think we would have won the Super Bowl that year. And I was really pretty passionate that I thought they should have signed Colin Kaepernick before that season. I thought it was pretty obvious that Blake Bortles wasn't the guy. The defense carried Blake Bortles that year, and Tom Coughlin and the regime at the time decided to give Blake Bortles an extension because the team was winning. And right, I think that was really the beginning of the end of Jacksonville, because right, like you look at all the swagger that we had on defense at the time, guys like Jalen Ramsey, Yannick Ngakoue, right? Those guys went against Blake Bortles every single day in practice. And right, like they knew he wasn't the guy. And he got a big contract. But then Tony Khan, Tony Khan got in the fight with Yannick Ngakoue at the time on Twitter. Tom Coughlin, right? Like they tried to pinch pennies on the defense, and those defensive guys actually deserved the money. And so, right, like I thought it made a riff in the locker room. The Jaguars, spiraled out of control. And then, right, like the front office admitted that Blake Bortles wasn't the guy, and we just needed someone serviceable. And so they went out and paid Nick Foles, coming off that Super Bowl win in 2017. And, the very first game against Kansas City, uh, look great. He throws that, you know, like uh, kind of lob touchdown pass to, I think, Chris Connolly, if I remember correctly. Um, in that first half, it started out like it was looking great, and then he gets hurt, I think a broken collarbone, and misses most of the rest of that season. I think he came back towards the end. He started 4 games. The Jags lost every single one of those games. And that was his only season with the Jags. The Jags decided to move on after that, right? So definitely something that didn't work out. But at least with Nick Foles, I will admit, like I thought I saw the logic, and I think it was really the compounding of the bad decision with Blake Bortles. But it really killed the 2017 Jacksonville team, and that's why they never made another run again, because of what they paid at quarterback for below average quarterback play between Blake Bortles and Nick Foles. And then finally, number one on our list, and before we do that, I will just touch on some honorable mentions here. Guys like Toby Gerhart came to mind for me. From a running back perspective, now we didn't pay him too much money, but it was just that thought that, like, oh, we'll take someone else's backup, make him a starter here, and you know he stunk. Bryce Pop is a guy who comes to mind back from the late '90s, but you know, like despite the fact that he didn't provide much production, it didn't really impact the team on the field. You know, the Jags were very good in the late '90s, so kept him off the list. But now the number one guy here, in a similar theme, another guy who kind of like came in when the team felt like it was potentially peaking and could make a big run, and just laid a big dud, and that was Jerry Porter, wide receiver from the Raiders, signed with the Jags in 2008 for 6 years, $30 million, and basically provided the Jags with absolutely nothing. I think most Jags fans won't even remember his stint on the team. Just again, 1 year, sat out a lot of the season, didn't provide the Jags really with anything on the field. And that Jaguars team really was, you know, like probably a star receiver away from potentially making a deep run in the playoffs, right? This was coming off, they made the signing coming off that nice playoff victory against the Steelers with David Garrard. We had Maurice Jones-Drew. You know, the defense was playing very well with Jack Del Rio and Stroud and Henderson clogging out the middle, Mike Peterson, right? Like we had a lot of pieces in place in that team, but the passing game, whether it was Reggie Williams, Matt Jones, Ernest Wilford, those guys, right? Like they weren't elite players. The Jaguars thought they were getting an elite player with Jerry Porter, but they were not. You know, the rumors out of the locker room was that he had a terrible attitude. He wasn't a fit for the culture, and Jerry Porter ended up not playing football again after that year. No one wanted to touch him, and so that's a really bad sign that you've made a bad signing there. And that's why he comes in here at number one for worst signings in Jaguars history. So I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know who you think I forgot, who you would have ranked number one. And I hope this makes Jaguars fans feel a little easier about the fact that we didn't go out and make a big splash in free agency this year. We have a good team in place, and let's just build around that. Let's keep trusting James Gladstone, Tony Baselli. They've given us no reason not to trust them, and looking forward to the next couple of weeks here in the draft. There'll be more videos coming up, so please subscribe so you get to see them all. And thank you all, and have a great day.